In my hand right now are two Australian rock lobsters. Now you might notice the one on the right is entirely pink. In this video, we're not only gonna find out why this lobster is pink, but also compare it to the taste of a rock lobster that doesn't have the same pigment. Believe it or not, I discovered this lobster on accident. We were walking through Thailand and I looked and I wondered to myself, why is this thing pink? I've never seen or heard about it in my entire life. I started doing some research and I couldn't find any explanation on the internet for it, and I spent the last day and a half finding out why this thing is actually pink. On the internet, they call this the white run lobsters. And pretty much what happens is a juvenile lobster will molt its red shell and ow! They're so sharp, guys. When a lobster becomes pink like this, it's extra susceptible to predators because it's not as strong as the super red lobsters. So if you notice at the top of its shell, it has several spikes, but if you look at the red lobster, it has way more spikes than the pink lobster. That's because it's a juvenile and the pink shell is significantly weaker. Taking a look at the bottom of this thing, you can really see just how pink it is. And when you touch its shell, it's not like it feels soft to the touch. You know, some lobsters, when they're in like a molted state, you could press it and the shell will literally press in. However, if you're feeling this compared to the red lobster, it is going to be significantly softer. Now, catching a pink lobster is extremely rare. It happens sometimes between November and February. And because the lobsters that are pink are susceptible to predators, they all march into deeper waters. You'll find a line of these lobsters miles long, literally, I'm not exaggerating at all. And they all walk exactly 283 degrees north into the deeper water. The reason why is because the mature, more red lobsters will kick the smaller juvenile lobsters or weaker lobsters out of the coral reefs and holes in the shallow areas. So these guys have no choice but to pretty much go deeper. Scientists across the world says that this is a global phenomenon. It only happens in Western Australia. Now you might be asking yourself, Nick, how does this thing know what exactly 283 degrees is? The lobsters can constantly feel the Earth's magnetic pull, so that's how they know exactly where to go. You can see these lobster walks all throughout different species, but this is the only one that goes exactly that degree. They usually settle somewhere between 100 and 200 meters in murky water so that they're able to be well hidden. That's between 300 and 600 feet below sea level. And when taking a look at this thing, it very closely resembles a lot of species of lobsters that are spiny lobsters in the United States. People on the internet hear a rumor that sometimes when you put a lobster straight into boiling water, it'll start screaming, they can feel the pain. I personally don't believe these crustaceans feel pain, but because you guys do, I'm gonna put it out of its misery. What you're gonna do is take a sharp object and you're gonna find a little bump on his head. That's where you're gonna put it. Those are all just nerves. He's definitely not alive anymore. Now it's this guy's turn. This one is a lot more angry. And if you take a look at his spikes, these spikes on his shell are so much more developed here. This guy looks mean, okay? I'm intimidated by him and I'm not even a fish. And you're just gonna... Oh, this shell is so much harder. Now, to make sure we really taste these lobsters, I just want to go with a simple recipe. We're just going to boil them with salt and water. Whenever you're boiling seafood, you want to make sure that you salt your water really well so that you keep that salty flavor from the ocean in the lobster. If you use fresh water, that flavor is going to escape pretty easily. The age-old problem on my channel, this crustacean probably won't fit. Yep, he doesn't fit. We're going to rip the sucker in half. Wow, very interesting. When looking at the meat, you see that it has a little bit of a pink hue to it. I'm very curious if that's gonna add or take away from the flavor at all. This guy's turn. Wow, this guy's really in there. It's pretty amazing how hardy these crustaceans are because even without an entire body, this thing is still kind of moving in all different directions. Having the two tails next to each other, you see just how different in color that they are. And even when you're taking a look at the meat, you see that the pink lobster is just a little bit lighter of a hue compared to the red one having like a super white tint that we know in most lobster species. Now that we have a rolling boil going, we're gonna put in our lobsters. To make sure I know which one is which, we're gonna put them in on different sides. Okay, so this lobster, is gonna go towards the top of it. Oh, the tail is moving right now. If I had to guess, the lobster is reacting to the salt in the water right now. And now we're gonna put the red lobster in on the opposite side. Bro is actively trying to escape the pot after he's been ripped in half and euthanized. It's wild. Now we're gonna put the top on just so that the parts that aren't directly in the water steam nice and good. The first thing I noticed when looking at these lobsters is that the one that was pink is still pretty pink. Starting out by removing the normal Australian rock lobster. Wow, look at this guy. Ow, boiling water on my face. And this is the pink lobster. Dude looks albino. It's actually wild. So the first thing I noticed on this is that his eyes are a different color than the red one once it's cooked. This is the pink lobster tail. It turned kind of like a bright orange. Very interesting. I was really expecting them to be the exact same shade after it was boiled, but there's a reason for this, okay? We are in experimental mode. How do they taste? Are they the same? Are they a little bit different? Is one more tender than the other? There has to be answers to these questions. I'm the guy to do it. Starting with the pink lobster tail. Got a nice strand of lobster poop. Everybody knows this is my favorite part. Okay. Looking at the meat, it's a very familiar white color that we see whenever we cook a lobster. It doesn't really look pink anymore or any discoloration than we're familiar with. Now we're gonna get the meat out of the red lobster tail. Wow, see, an instant difference that I noticed is that the red lobster, it really does have a much harder shell. Ugh. This thing is so hot. I just burned my hands so bad. You can see after they're cooked, they look pretty much the same, but that doesn't mean that one isn't more tender than the other. Starting with the pink lobster. And now onto the red lobster. Wow. I've made my analysis. What I noticed is that the pink lobster meat is sweeter. It's not that the meat itself is sweet, it's just comparatively speaking to the red lobster, it is a lot sweeter. When I take a bite of the red lobster, it's a lot more firm. The pink one was a little bit more tender. The red one has a very salty and savory taste to it, comparatively speaking to the pink lobster. Now, if you were to get served one or the other at a restaurant, I don't believe you'd be able to tell the difference. The only way that I know is because I'm eating them back to back with each other. And something else that's kind of strange is that I noticed there isn't any lobster butter in this. Ow! I stabbed myself. Oh, I was wrong. Look, check it out. This brown stuff right here is my favorite part. This might as well be liquid gold. I would buy this by the ounce if it was sold like that. So creamy, so good. A little bizarre that it's not yellow. In most lobster species, it usually is. Let's see how the red one is. Maybe it will be yellow. Super interesting. So the inside of this lobster is significantly more yellow. The first thing I noticed when I cracked these two is that the pink lobster has almost no lobster butter, and on top of that, it has like a gray brownish hue to it. Now when looking at the red lobster, you see that it has so much more lobster butter inside. And whenever I say lobster butter, it actually means the liver. Looking at the liver in the red lobster, it has a much more yellow hue to it. And it's so creamy, it's so delicious. That red lobster is gas. All in all, this is my synopsis. The pink lobster is cool, okay? It's a cool party trick. With that being said, I believe the red lobster is better. It has much more savory and familiar flavors that we know. The pink lobster is a little bit sweeter than the red lobster in the meat, but it's not way sweeter, okay? It's just like not as savory, I guess is a better way to put it than to say sweeter. The liver, dead knockout. The red lobster is so fire. If you're ever at a restaurant and someone tries to serve you a pink lobster, say, hey, yo, give me a red one. And if you want to know some more facts about the Australian rock lobster, this video right here is me cooking a massive one. I'm talking like this big, okay? You should click it. This pose kind of hurts. Please click it.